Hello. Welcome back to Life After Plus One. I'm the annual podcast host and your single parent mentor and coach. And welcome to everybody that's new here, just jumping on board and discovering Life After Plus One. And for those of you that are new, welcome. And just a quick little rundown of what you find here. This is your place for anything to do with single parenting. I'm here for mums and dads. I'm here for you all. There's no hate. There's no gender bashing, there's no negativity, because realistically, that is not what gets you through your breakup. I'm here to help you move forward. And being angry and bitter towards your ex, that's what keeps you stuck in the past. And that is not what we're doing here. We, here at Life After Plus One, well, me, myself, as your coach, what I do is I focus on you, where you are at, where you want to go in your life. How are you feeling? What is coming up for you? This is what Life After Plus One is all about. You, not your ex, not being bitter, not fighting, not being angry. We are looking at you and doing what we can to help you live your best single parent life until you find your next plus one. And what I want to talk about today is quite a daunting process that you will go through as a single parent. Some of you may have already gone through this process. Some of you may not. And that is the legal process, whether that's mediation, whether that's court hearings or anything else that you go through in your breakup with your co-parent. It is a very daunting and overwhelming experience. So today, I want to give you some advice and some guidance and some tips on how to best approach this legal process and mediation process and everything else with your co-parent. Welcome to the Life After Plus One podcast, where we turn life's lemons into delightful lemonade. Get ready for inspiring stories, uplifting conversations, and all the tips and tricks to rock your single parent journey with style. I'm your host, Leanne, and it's time to embrace the adventure of Life After Plus One. So, let's dive in. So this is one thing that pretty much every single parent will experience throughout some part of their single parent life. So if you haven't gone through this yet, there is no doubt you will at some point, whether that be with custody, settlement, divorce proceedings, anything at all. You will go through this, and that is the legal process and or mediation. And one thing I see a lot that comes back to me with my clients that I've worked with is how different they feel going into their legal proceedings when they've had the right support. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to really emphasize here, I'm not here to give you legal advice. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm here to give you the advice on how to best navigate this part of your life or this little chapter that you go through, because it is overwhelming. It is scary. It is daunting. And it's something that you probably have never gone through before. And one thing I do see a lot in my line of work is working with single parents that have gone through this process and have felt very manipulated by their co-parent, or they've felt rushed into making decisions, and they've come out of it with a result that they don't want. They've come out of it with things that they felt pressured to agree to. And this is not what I want you to be doing. Because one thing, if anything, that I will encourage everyone that I work with, or everyone that follows my content or reads my newsletters or blogs or anything, one thing that I really want to emphasize here is having a voice, standing your ground, speaking up. And in saying that, that is not about being nasty or confrontational, and that is never, ever what I would suggest or advise. Because when you go down that path, that's when it just comes back to bite you on the ass, because they're just going to come back twice as hard, especially when you're dealing with a high conflict co-parent. So when you do have a bit more of a voice, when you do feel more confident in yourself, you feel more secure and confident to speak up and say what you want. Because this is what a lot of people forget. This is a life-changing choice that you're doing here. It's not just some sort of random decision as in what you're going to wear for the day. This is a huge process that you're going through that can affect your lives and your kids' lives. You don't just want to give in for the sake of it. And sadly, it does happen a lot where you're feeling pressured. You're feeling rushed. You feel like you've just got to make a decision because it's coming to the end of the time slot. And the thing is, under no means should you ever be rushed into making a decision that you're not comfortable with. Under no means should you be making a decision that you just felt forced into doing, where deep down you're thinking, this is not what I want, but I feel like I've just got to do this. I've just got to give in. I've just got to make a decision. You don't just got to do anything if you are not 100% comfortable with it. And this is what I want everyone to realize. And, when you're in that situation, it is overwhelming. It is intimidating, especially if your ex is there in front of you. Now, I know in some situations you can do it where in mediation you can be in different rooms, but there are times when you are together and it is very intimidating. And when you see them, your ex, you do or you can start to feel anxious and worked up and you just want to hurry the process up and get it done. And those are times that you walk out feeling like, shit, I just made a decision that I did not want to do. And this is why it's so, so, so important to walk into these situations with a clear headspace. And I understand it's not always the easiest to do because thinking about this process is very overwhelming. It's a mental and emotional headfuck. It really is, because this is a huge step that you're taking. And quite often you don't know what to expect. You don't know how it's going to turn out or what's going to happen or how it's going to work. You're just there planning your future or doing what you need to do in the moment. And it is very uncomfortable being in a situation that you just don't know. And that's just it. Everyone in life in general, when you're out of your comfort zone, when you're doing something that you don't know what you're doing, it is very scary. And this is the whole thing when you're going into this process, especially when you're dealing with the court process, which is even more intimidating, that you need to be in the correct headspace. You need to not go in there fighting from emotions. They hurt me. They upset me. They made me sad. This is one thing that I will emphasize time and time again. Courts, mediation, whatever else, they're not there to hear about your emotions. And that may sound a little bit harsh to some people listening to this, but that's a true story. They're not there to fix you, to heal you, to pat you on the back and say, you'll be okay, you'll get through this. They're there to do their job, which is black and white, right or wrong. That's how courts operate. They don't want the fluffy stuff. They don't want the emotions. They don't want the sadness or anything else that comes with it. They just want to know this is happening or that's not happening. What is happening here? Let's get both sides. Let's put it together. So if you want to work out the fluffy stuff and everything else in between, that's where someone like me comes in, where I work with you through all of that. That's not what court is for. And a lot of people go into it very emotionally charged, very focused on how they feel, how they've been hurt, what's happened to them. That is not what court or mediation is for. It's not a venting place on what your ex has done or how your breakup turned out. It's a place where you can work out what is best for your kids and how their future is going to look going forward with you and your ex as co-parents. That's what this process is about. And if you are going into this and you are feeling very anxious, you're very emotionally charged, you're very worked up from the breakup and everything else that's happened, then my best advice is step back and focus on that first. Because when you can go into this process with a clearer headspace, knowing what you want, knowing what outcome you want, knowing what you want going forward and how you want it to look, it will make the world of difference. Because when it comes to this part of it, the next part, which is actually coming to decision making. And the thing is, when you are very emotionally charged still, when you are still caught up in a lot of emotions from the breakup, It is next to impossible to get to a place where you want to compromise or cooperate or agree to something. When you are so still pissed off at your ex and you're still hurting and you're still angry and you've got all these emotions there, you're like, nah, fuck them. I'm not giving them that. No way. I'm not doing that. There's no way they're having that. You're just fighting against everything. And without even realizing it, you're fighting just because you don't want them to win. And that is not what this process is about. This process needs to be focused on, what do the kids need? The kids need time with mum. The kids need time with dad. How are we going to make this work best? But when you're so caught up in the breakup and what your ex has done to you or what's happened or how heartbroken you are, you don't want to cooperate. Because you're just thinking, why should I give them what they want? Why should I let them win? Why should I help them out when they've just hurt me? And I get that. I really do. But the thing is, this is the hardest part of co-parenting. Understanding that anything now with you and your ex is not about you. And that's hard. In a way, it's a bit of a slap in the face. It's like, well, yeah, I am important. Well, yes, you are. But when it comes to co-parenting, it's not about you and your feelings. It's about understanding, is this person a good parent? Is this person going to show up for the kids? Is this person going to be there for the kids? Is this person someone that I want in my kids' lives? Is this someone that's going to be there as a good role model for the kids? That's your focus. That's your focus. If the kids are in danger, if they're in harm's way, if something's happening, very different. But if it's a situation where you're just pissed off at them and you don't want them to have that time with the kids because of how pissed off you are, then that's when you really need to take a step back and focus on where you're at. Because if that's where you are at, then you're making this decision based on how you feel, not based on what you feel is best for your kids. And at the end of the day, we all know that the kids having time with both mum and dad is what the kids need, and more often than not is what they want. The only time they usually get to a place where they're picking sides is when they're hearing things from each parent and they're feeling like they're being pushed in one direction or the other. That's not fair on them. That's not what the kids need. And even if you're at a place where the other parent is doing wrong, which does happen more often than not, way too much if you ask me, but that's up to the kids to make that decision on the other parent. It's not your mum or your dad. It's the kid's mum or the kid's dad. It's up to them to choose how they want to handle that as they get older. They might get to a place where they say, I still love you. You're my mum. You're my dad. I don't like the way you're behaving or what you've done, but so be it. Kids are more than capable of making up their own minds. They see what happens. They know what happens. And they can make their own decision of what they believe or what they feel is right for mum or dad. It's not up to the parents to tell them mum's bad or dad's bad. It's up to the kids to make that decision. And I know when you're going into this process, it can feel scary where you feel like you might be losing out or you might not be seeing them as much as you want. So you feel like maybe you've got to speak up a little bit more because you've got to get more time with the kids, or you've got to get this or you've got to get that. And it is scary. But one thing that a lot of people overlook and forget is that you never get a positive or constructive outcome when you're both just butting heads. It never works. If you're fighting with your ex and you're arguing with them over time, over money, over anything else, you are never going to come to a mutual agreement when you're both just butting heads and you're both just fighting at each other and you're both just refusing to give in. The best thing you can possibly do in this place is to actually get to a space where you can say, okay, you've pissed me off. You're an asshole. I don't like what you're doing. I don't like how you're handling this, but we need to put this shit aside and figure out how we can make this work for the kids. That is the best thing you can do, but is the one thing that most people do not do. because they're still so hurt. They don't feel like, or they don't realize that they need to be looking after themselves first. But that is the most important thing you can do leading up to this. Because I can guarantee you, when you go into this with a clearer headspace, you are going to be making far better decisions. Far better decisions. And most importantly, another thing that happens in this process is quite often you get manipulated or gaslit, or, you've been villainized. We all know these things happen when you're dealing with a high conflict and toxic co-parenting, especially when you're dealing with a narcissistic ex. They will make you the bad parent. They will do whatever they can to paint you as the bad person so they can look like the innocent one. And as I just touched on, the more you fight that, the more they're going to come back and fight at you. And I get it. You're going into this hurt. You're going into this with all these emotions of how dare they do this to me? How dare they make me be the bad person? I'm going to show them. But realistically, that mentality doesn't get you anywhere. And that is why so often you hear about court proceedings and all this legal stuff when you're going through divorce and custody and everything else. It can go on for years and years and years and years because you're at a place where you're refusing to cooperate. You're refusing to come to a happy medium place or a common ground because you feel like if you do that, it's letting them win. No, I'm not letting them win. Nope, not giving in. Nope, not giving in. But the thing is, it's not about giving in. It's like, okay, this is what the kids need. Let's do this. But as I just said, when you're so emotionally invested and you're still so hurt, you're just going to keep butting heads. You're going to keep going through the legal process. You're going to keep throwing away more and more money because you're still so emotionally hurt. This is why it is so important to work through those emotions first, because you're able to put that to the side and go, okay, let's look at what the kids need. And now going back to what I just said, when they do villainize you, because quite often it does happen. It happens way too often. But the thing is, once again, when you go into this with a clear headspace, you don't feed into that. When you're more confident in yourself, when you've worked through those emotions, you don't go into that feeling like they're going to say this about me, or they're going to say that, or they're going to say this and they're going to believe it. But when you're more confident in yourself, when you've worked through everything, you're able to go in and go, let them say what they want. They can say I'm a bad parent. They can say I'm stopping them from seeing the kids. They can say I'm doing this or this or this. It doesn't matter because I know it's not true. And I've got evidence to back that up. That is what's important. It's not about he said, she said in court hearings or mediation. It's about facts. And if you can go into this process, standing your ground and being confident in yourself, knowing your truth, then that is what's important. If you can go into this backing up your truth, then that is what's important. They can go in and say whatever lies they want to say, but if they've got nothing to back it up, then it means nothing. But I understand that when you're going through this and you're already going through an emotional headfuck of everything that you've got going on, it's not easy to step back and go, well, who cares what they say? Because you're already emotionally broken. You care what they say. That's the thing. When you're feeling like this, you do care. And that is, again, why it is so important to work through those feelings, because when you haven't, it does consume you. It does make things so much harder for you. But when you do let that go and you do emotionally detach from them before you get started or start that process of making that happen, then when they do go in and lie about you, they do go in and say this shit about you, you're able to stand your ground and say, well, actually, no, that's not what happened. They've had this or all these opportunities to see the kids and they haven't done it. You're able to go in and stand your ground and be confident about the actual facts of what has happened. So what lies they come up with means nothing, because it's all about the facts. And that's what's so important when you're going into this. And that is why you really need to focus on you. So when you're going into this, the biggest things to take into consideration is, one, what do the kids need going forward? How is this going to work best for them? Because realistically, nobody wants to hand over the kids to the ex, especially when it's someone that's pissed you off more than anything. You don't want to do that. You want to keep the kids with you every single day. Who doesn't? Everyone wants that. And one common line I hear more often than you realize is, if only my ex could just disappear. You would be surprised at how often I hear that sentence, or a sentence along those, like with that same meaning. Very often I hear that. If only my ex could just disappear, this would be so much easier. Of course it would. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen that way. And that is why you really need to focus on you. You really need to focus on what the kids need going forward. So that is what your priority is when you're going to this. Your kids, what they need going forward. And you, how you are going to show up going into this process. How you are going to handle this situation. Because there's a good chance they will drop a grenade and make you panic and make you look like the crazy parent. But when you go in with a clear headspace, knowing what you want, confident in who you are, confident that you're doing the right thing, then they can throw any shit your way and you are prepared for it. Because you can stand there with proof that's not the case. That's actually known that's not what's happened. When you can go into this knowing that no matter what happens, you're probably never both going to agree. And that happens more often than not because you just don't want to agree. But when you can actually get to a place where you realize it's not about agreeing with them, it's not about letting them win, it's about what my kids need, then that's what's important. And that's a very hard place to get to because you do feel like you're letting your ex win, but you're not. You're not. And the other thing that is really important to remember is if you can go into this process, again, with a much clearer headspace, it does make co-parenting so much easier because when you go in with that fight mentality of I want to win, I want to beat them, I'm going to get them, then that dynamic stems through to your co-parenting relationship. It just drags on and on and on because you're not just going to go through this process where it's fight, I'm going to win, I'm going to beat them. And then all of a sudden you come out of this legal process and you're back to kumbaya, happy co-parenting. It doesn't work like that. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to be angry. They're going to make your life difficult. They're like, I'm not going to help them out. What? They didn't help me out through this. I'm not going to help them. And then it's just that endless cycle of refusing to cooperate, of refusing to meet halfway. And who's caught in the middle of this? The kids. And this is why it's always so important to come back to that. What works best for the kids? And if it's hard for you to get to that place, then focus on working on you first. Focus on working through those emotions that keep coming up, that are pushing you back from wanting to cooperate, that are pushing you back from wanting to try be amicable. And when you do that, it is not about letting them win. It is not about giving in, even though they have done wrong by you. It's about putting those emotions to the side and going, I don't care what they did. That's in the past. That breakup is in the past, and that is separate to what is happening right now. Your breakup and your co-parenting relationship are two very different things. Your breakup is what pissed you off, and that's why your relationship ended. Your co-parenting relationship is now about your kids. That is where your focus needs to be. And please understand, I'm not invalidating any of your feelings or anything that you've been through from your breakup. You have every right to be pissed off, hurt, angry, sad, resentful, bitter, anything else. You have every right to feel those emotions. However, you have to separate them from your co-parenting relationship. Otherwise, it just drags on and on and on and on. And that is why you see so many co-parents that just can't even talk to their ex. They can't even face them. They can't do anything around them because they haven't let go of the breakup. That is so important. So if you are going through this process and you are there and you're like, I just can't do this on my own. I need some help. I need some support because I'm just too frazzled right now, then this is the whole idea of coaching. This is what we do. I have sessions available just to help you prepare for mediation. Or we can do the full-on deep dive coaching where we can fully unpack how you're feeling, how to co-parent in a more amicable way, because this is the most important thing when it comes to co-parenting. It's not about changing your ex. It's not about changing what they do. It's not about changing how they speak or what's happened in the past. It's about knowing how to handle that in a way where you don't get so emotionally invested. It's about knowing how to handle it where you're not taking things so personally, and you can just take it on with a grain of salt and just realize this is the kid's other parent. This is who they are. It is what it is. And that's the whole idea. And when you learn to work through those breakup emotions, when you learn to let everything go from the past, when you learn to work through everything, it makes the world of difference. It really does. So please, if this is where you are at, let's work through this. Because there is nothing worse than going through the legal process where it just drags on and on and on and on because you're both so emotionally charged and you both just want to win, you both just want to beat each other, you both refuse to give in. So you just keep butting heads, getting to a place where you get no result, but you keep throwing away money on legal fees. Wouldn't it be far better just to spend that money on looking after you and getting yourself in a better headspace so you can get this done in a far quicker and healthier way? Because like I said, they can show up how they want, but when you're confident in yourself, you don't take on their shit. You don't feed into it. You don't panic when they lie about you. You don't panic when they come up with bullshit or they try to manipulate you or they try to gaslight you or they try to villainize you. You can just take it on and say, actually, no, that's not true. That's not what's happened. These are the facts. This is what I'm dealing with here. That's what's important. How you show up, how you handle the situation, how you present yourself, and how you show that this is not about your feelings, it's about your kids. And that's what they want to see when you're going through the legal process of mediation. They want to see that they're not putting yourself first and your emotions first. They want to see that you're putting the kids' needs first. That is the priority. So please reach out if you do need help with any of this, with working through those emotions, with preparing for mediation, with letting go of the past and working through those emotions to help you be in a better headspace for this next step. And most importantly, to help you let it go. Because as I touched on, if you don't work through it, if you don't let it go, it is just going to drag on through your entire co-parenting relationship. How toxic is that? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. And just remember, this is not about working on anything for your ex. This is not about changing things for your ex. This is about making things easier for you. And this is what a lot of people think. But I can't change anything if they're not going to change. No, you can't. Well, not with them anyway, but you can with you. And that is the idea. And that is what we do here at coaching. We don't change your ex. It's you, your confidence, how you handle it, how you show up, how you deal with things, and how you respond, how you react. That is what is important. So I hope you all got something valuable from today's podcast. Like I said, it's not legal advice, but it's advice of what you need to know when you're going through this process. So please take it on board. I hope you got some great feedback. Please feel free to share any questions or anything that you may have got from today's episode. And if you do have any other single parent friends, share the podcast with them. Help them out. Let them know that this advice and support is there to help them through their journey of single parent life. And as I said, if you do want that support, all the details are in the show notes. Come over and follow me on Instagram at lifeafter+1 and send me a DM there if you have any questions as well. So thank you all. And until next week, I'll be in your ears then. Thank you for joining us on the Life After +1 podcast. If you loved what you heard today and looking for some further support, then jump onto our website, lifeafter+1.com. Plus, don't forget to check out our Instagram page for further resources and inspo. You can find all the links in the show notes. And remember, you're not alone on this path. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep exploring your amazing life after +1.